Obviously, we have a lot of equipment that you do a lot of testing, and we know there's two different types of testing that goes on. Just explain a little bit about the levels of testing that we do in Bermuda and what we don't do in Bermuda.
Okay, right here in front of you, you have the performance enhanced kits and you have the illicit kit. This kit in particular is the blood performance enhancing kit. This does the biological passport and anything involving blood. This kit in the middle is the illicit kit. This does urine and it's a 5-panel illicit kit. This kit right here is the performance enhanced urine kit, and it tests the urine samples provided, and for specific athletes it will do EPO and human growth hormone and such like.
Now, obviously, this kit here, the blood one, is testing for various other performance enhancing used by athletes?
Yes, it does the human growth hormone, it does EPO as well, it does the athletic biological passport. And the biological passport is basically a tracking agent for athletes, which is looked at over time, each time the test is given.
Now, what is the level of time from the time an athlete is tested to the time you get the results using the different forms of the different methods?
Okay. For the blood, for the performance enhanced kits, it can be a week to 2 weeks. For the illicit, it's 24 hours, and then we take it to the local lab for confirmation on a positive sample.
All right, Debbie Jones Hunter, obviously, your organization is the governing body for Bermuda when it comes to searching out for performance enhancing drugs. There's so many issues going on in Bermuda socially that one in the street always talks about. This is all you're looking for is people using different forms of drugs. We want to try to help make people understand that what your function and what your role in Bermuda is all about. So can you shed some light in layman terms, obviously, how we can get that message across?
Yes, I'm glad you said in layman's terms. As you know, I am a person who is very frank and very honest and to the point. First, I want to say to Bermuda that when we do the two different forms of testing, we're basically working on the two different programs. As Ms. Rosa had spoke about, with the illicit testing, it is what we would call pre-event testing, where we test teams before they leave the island. These are teams that are representing Bermuda. And so what I want to make everyone understand and make it very clear that all teams are required to send their list in so that we can test them. With the performance enhancing, it has to do a lot with our test pools, where we test national teams. We test the registered testing athletes, for instance, like Arantxa King and Tyrone Smith, just as as they're talking about Asafa Powell, Lance Armstrong, and the like. These are the kits that we actually use. What is really important for Bermuda to understand, and maybe some people do, but for those that are not quite clear on the subject, is that while we are an anti-doping organization, which some people can call us, in quotes, the popo, we go out and search out people, we believe strongly, as per the Water Code, that we should be participating in a clean environment of sport. And there's nothing worse than someone out there that's training hard 2 and 3 hours every day, putting in their best, trying to do what they will consider as their best performance, when you have another athlete over here who's getting an extra bit of help. And that's not fair. And for me, personally speaking, I would have been very upset if someone had won a gold medal over me and I had done my performance and my training quite clear and honest and fairly, and you have other people that don't. And I think that if you really look at it honestly and take out the dollar value, what would you want? You would want someone to be just as honest as you. And so that's what we are here to do. And we are also here to let people know that we are helpers, not always takers and not always searching out. And so if you feel that someone is taking part in an event unfairly, you can give us a call. Everything here is confidential. And we are also looking at making our sport better in Bermuda. Because at one point in time, we were definitely a country to be reckoned with. And I think, and I know that we have a lot of talent in this island, and it's okay to do the right thing, to step back and be different. There's nothing wrong with that. And so I employ all Bermudians, old and young, to really think about putting your best foot forward in sport, keeping it clean. Now, by and large, people make their own choices in life. But I say clearly, if you come into this office and you test positive, then you deal with the consequences. And so while that I'm not a judgmental person of how you live your life, what do you really want out of your life in sport and in general?
Now, recently throughout the Caribbean, there was a lot of talk about, especially Jamaican athletes, getting tested positive. Do you think that the results that we've been given, or the news that's come out of Jamaica, has kind of rocked the Caribbean?
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt. If you ever have any country that has produced that amount of elite sprinters, then that's an obvious question. Are you testing? How much are you testing? And if you're not, why not? And so that is a very legitimate question. I think that when everybody looks at Jamaica around the world, when you have 4 people that's in the finals of a 100-meter race, a national or international race, people are going to say, well, what's going on? I think that's only a legitimate question, but now that everything has been brought to light, and then you have Usain Bolt, that is the #1 sprinter in the world, who one may say has not been tested enough. That's a legitimate question. Look at the Lance Armstrong issue, So, and if you're clean, why not be tested? There's nothing wrong with that. And I think that's the perfect message that you send to the world. So I think that between WADA and JEDCO, they have a lot of work to do. I only wish them all the best, because this is not going to be an easy task. And the world is looking at Jamaica. What can we say? But we're saying as a Caribbean, counterpart, let's do our part, let's be above board, and let's take care of business. So I do wish them all the best, because this is a very trying time right now. And, questions, that require answers, it's definitely going to be on the table. So I wouldn't want to be in their shoes, but I will say this much. With Posada, we definitely do our share of testing overseas, and we do our share of testing here. And also what is great is that with our testing overseas, we deal with a lot of other NADOs, USADA, UCAD, Canada, and even internationally, for instance, like in the Netherlands and the like. So we have definitely stretched our arms out to embrace testing abroad, and building a relationship is very important in our very existence. So one may think many times, what are they doing here? Trust you me, we're testing.
All right. You take a lot of the blame for if I test positive. The challenges that you face in your day-to-day job as an anti-doping agent, what are some of those challenges you face?
Well, I think the biggest challenge is, distinguishing between the 2 programs, the anti-doping program and the illicit program, and really driving that home to our athletes, to the NSGBs, and letting them know that there's two programs that actually address 2 totally different things, and also getting a buy-in from your various stakeholders, like the NSGBs and your athletes, and let them know that actually the work that we do is actually worthwhile, and ultimately is going to benefit our athletes and the country in the long run. One of the things that I often say to people is, basically, if you look at sport and what it takes to become successful in your sport, there's a melting pot in there that involves your training regime, your diet, and anti-doping and drug testing is just another part. It's just another component to becoming a successful athlete. So I think really, getting those messages across can be challenging. There is pushback naturally from people that are just unsure of what's going on. Oftentimes they question, the rationale behind certain types of testing. But that's part of our job. We work a lot. A lot of our work is based on risk. We can receive information from third parties, from external agencies, and we need to use that information and go out and test. And sometimes people look at us and say, "Well, why are you testing here?" But in actual fact, when the results come back, we found positive results, as we did a few years back with a cyclist using EPO.
Now, you spend a lot of time going out and talking to various groups about different levels of testing you do. What sort of response do you usually get when you're out talking, especially with youngsters?
Yeah, I think the responses are fairly positive. I think, everybody's sort of interested in the elite level, the sort of steroid issues that come with sprinting, and of course Usain Bolt being such a global superstar right now, as well as people like Lance Armstrong. I think people are fairly aware of that when it comes to the anti-doping program. So there is a lot of interest there. People often question, how much doping is going on in Bermuda, which of course we don't necessarily have the answer to. But of course, negative results don't necessarily mean that we don't have a problem in Bermuda. We can't rest on our laurels. And when you look at the illicit program, I think it's fair to say that there's a lot of interest in that. People are fairly perceptive to the messages, and of course the marijuana issue is something that is pretty common right now, and most people tend to have an opinion on that. So yeah, it's been positive going out and speaking to the various sports.
All right. Well, Debbie, obviously you guys are off to the conference in Johannesburg in the first week of November, is it?
Actually, it's the second week of November. We'll be leaving here November the 10th. The conference is between the 11th and the 15th. Duncan Barkley, along with myself and Lee Holder, our board chair, will be going to Johannesburg to get the final ratification on the 2015 Water Code, along with Mr. Philip Guichard from the Bermuda Olympic Association. And while I think that it's fair to say that we would prefer to wait, we will wait until after our meeting, and then we can come back with a full detailed of changes to the Water Code. Some of the changes are pretty firm. I would say that sends a message. And I think they're moving in the right direction. I just think that really anti-doping is not an easy field to be in. So rather than it being a thankless job, I think that is a wonderful job, and that our staff works hard, and we have very in-depth discussions. And so both Duncan and I and Mr. Holder were looking forward to meeting our friends in Johannesburg and actually broadening our knowledge of anti-doping, because while we're here, 21 square miles, there is a larger world going on, and I think that we only can grow by leaps and bounds. So we're looking forward to that very long trip.